Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of You've Gotta See This, your guide to what's playing in theaters and at home. My name is Brad, and I'm joined by my co-host Blake. Blake, how was this week for you?
It was really slow. It was only one movie in the theaters, but we got some award shows. We got the Golden Globes, so that was pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some fun stuff going on, even if there wasn't much going on at the box office. I will say I am a little bit under the weather, so just bear with me a little bit for this episode. First off, we are going to be talking about what's playing in theaters. We're going to be talking about, unfortunately, The Grudge. The Grudge is one of the worst movies that I've seen in a long time. And if you want to know the plot is about a cursed house that kills anyone who enters it, and a police officer begins to investigate, begins to become obsessed with the story of the house. This was one of the laziest, most boring, by the numbers, tired remakes I have ever seen. And it has like 3 different timelines that are happening all at the same time that do not work at all. Extremely poor direction that is never more evident than the wooden, terrible performances he gets out of every single actor in this movie. Jackie Weaver is an amazing actress, and she is laughably bad in this movie. John Cho is incredibly boring. Betty Gilpin is given nothing to do but cry. Andrea Riseborough and Demian Bashir are cookie-cutter cliche cop characters. There's barely any score, and when there is, it's entirely forgettable. The editing is absolutely atrocious, and it's paced very poorly. This was just a nothing movie. Nothing happens in it. I couldn't wait for it to be over. It's only an hour and 33 minutes, thankfully, with credits, so it's like mercifully short, thankfully, but it does feel like an absolute eternity. There are more establishing shots of buildings and people taking forever to walk places and reused footage and flashbacks, and you can tell that it was just padded out to make this a feature-length runtime. The only good thing in this movie is that there are a handful of good gore moments that are done pretty well. Overall, I hated this movie, and I have to give The Grudge a 0.5 out of 5.
So, yeah, this movie is really, really bad. It has a really, really bad start, an awful start. This entire movie is just a first act setup of just, here are your characters, here's kind of what the deal is, here's what's going on, and then the finale just happens, and then it's over, and it goes, boom, the end. It's very tired. This movie's been done a million times before. Specifically, The Grudge has, but like in general, this type of horror movie has been done before with the same type of scares and everything. There's really, really bad acting across the board. The score sounds like royalty-free YouTube music that they just found on there, or like videos that would be in Vines or TikTok videos. It's terrible and it's lazy. This whole movie's lazy. There's a decent cast, and they're all given absolutely nothing to do, like you said. And some of them are even really, really bad with given nothing to do. They're, like, actively trying too hard or not trying at all. Half of them are trying too hard, half of them are not trying at all, and it's super obvious. It's so dreary. It's shot so lazily. The color palette is so unappealing. It's not that it's unsettling like you want in a horror movie. It's just unappealing and boring. Nothing's inventive that's done in this movie. Not a single thing is a thing that hasn't been done before. Every single scare in the movie is the same scare that they do throughout the entire movie. Someone thinks they see something and they turn around, the thing's not there, and then wait, turn around, and guess what? The thing's there, and the music goes boom. And it's just kind of that for an hour and a half, and then the movie ends. It's nothing. There are good gore effects. There are very good gore effects, actually. That's the only reason I'm giving this movie a 1 out of 5, is because the gore effects were pretty good, and they kind of knew how bad it was, so they were like, we'll just get it over with so you don't have to deal with it anymore or think about it anymore. It's an hour and a half, and it's over, so thank you, 1 out of 5.
Yeah, it's just a nothing of a movie. Just completely avoid this movie at all costs if you can. There's no point in seeing it. If you've seen the original or the 2004 remake with Sarah Michelle Gellar, you've seen this movie before done way better than this. So that was the only movie that came out in theaters this week. So we're going to switch gears and talk about what's playing at home. And upcoming on Friday, Midsommar is being added to Amazon Prime. The plot of Midsommar is, after a horrible tragedy, a young woman accompanies her boyfriend and his classmates on a trip to Europe to attend a traditional summer festival. Blake, tell us what you thought about Midsommar.
This movie is immediately heartbreaking, dark, sad, and fucked up, and I would expect nothing less from Ari Aster. This man is incredible. He's a genius. He has a really dark mind, and I want to keep seeing what he does in the world of horror. Doing a horror movie, this entire movie is in broad daylight, and there's no moonlight, there's no night scenes. I don't think there's a single scene that takes place whenever the sun isn't up, and that's really, really hard to do for a horror movie. He still makes it scary, and he still makes it suspenseful. It's still edge-of-your-seat stuff, even though it's all done in broad daylight. That creates for inventive horror. Just like we were talking about with The Grudge just a second ago, none of it's inventive, none of it tried anything new. This movie is almost all new stuff and inventive stuff I haven't seen done in horror before, and I loved it. This movie does something very specific with the cameras that is related to something that's going on with the characters. I don't really want to give it away, but it is spot on. I've never seen camera work like that and specific effects done like that before, but it's throughout the entire movie. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, but it's magical what they do in this movie with the camera. It's very, very long, and it feels like it's as long as it is. I'm not going to say that it feels super short, because it feels like you're there for a really, really long time. And that's kind of the point. You're supposed to be with these characters and riding with these characters and going through with what they're going through for as long as they're going through it. There's incredible character setup and then development in this movie, and then bringing them down. And it's all done so well. The character work here is top-notch stuff. The gore effects in here, there's a specific gore effect in this movie that I haven't been able to get the sound and the image out of my head ever since I saw this movie months ago. I replay in my head before I go to sleep sometimes, and it fucks with me. It's disgusting, and it's so disturbing, and it's done so insanely well. I'm struggling because I don't really want to say too much to give too much away about this movie. I just think that you have to go see this movie if you like horror. If you don't like horror and you're kind of bored with the stuff that goes on in horror, the typical dark hallway, witch kind of stuff of, oh, let me look down this hallway, and then there's something there, and it's not there, and then it is there. This is all new stuff. It's all different stuff. If you're tired of horror, go see this movie. If you love horror, go see this movie. Everyone should see this movie, unless you have a weak stomach. Then I would say don't see this movie, just because it's got a lot of dark content in it. If you can handle that, then definitely see this movie. I'm going 4.5 out of 5.
Awesome. So Midsommar stars Florence Pugh, Jack Rayner, Will Poulter, William Jackson Harper, and a couple of other great characters, especially in the people who make up the village that they go to visit. There's some really, really great characters in there. It is definitely the most unnerving, gut-wrenching film of 2019, and Ari Aster is a master of tension building and severely twisted storytelling, and all of his talents are on full display here. Like you were saying, this film is gorgeously shot, and it has some incredibly beautiful locations, and it takes a lot of guts to set a horror movie entirely at daytime, and it seriously works in a big, big way. The dark things that are happening on screen are contrasted by the bright, beautiful scenery in this just really interesting way, where you can't help but watch what's happening. You can't rip your eyes away from the screen, even whenever it's absolutely horrifying and disgusting. There's an effect that's used that you were talking about whenever the characters have some, let's say, psychoactive things going on with them, and it's absolutely mesmerizing and unsettling all at once, just like this whole movie is, and it's just great. It has some of the most graphically realistic gore that I've ever seen in the movie, so like you were saying, definitely not for the squeamish, and it also deals with some occultish type stuff, so if that turns you off, steer clear. Otherwise, strap in and get ready for the best horror film of 2019, as well as one of the best films of the year, period. I also want to give Midsommar a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, and I do just one more thing about Midsommar. Florence Pugh is in my top 10 movies of the year twice. This movie and Little Women are both in my top 10. She's incredible. Huge star-making year for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And she also was in a really great movie called Fighting with My Family that Blake hasn't seen, but I really, really enjoyed. Shocked me how much I enjoyed that movie. I did not expect a single thing from it, and she completely brings that movie home, and just an incredible year for her. So changing gears once more, we're going to talk about our top 5 most anticipated films of the year. Blake, I'm going to pass it off to you. Give us your number 5 film of the year.
So top 5 most anticipated. You want me to just go number 5 first?
Sure. Yeah, we'll pass it off to each other.
Okay, so number 5 for me is The Eternals, Marvel's The Eternals. I don't know anything about the Eternals comic book. I know absolutely nothing about it. I haven't even done my usual, like, go on Wikipedia and learn a little bit about them real quick. I don't want to. I want to go in completely blind. I knew nothing about the Guardians of the Galaxy going into that movie, and it blew my mind. The cast for this movie, just some of the cast, is Angelina Jolie, Salma Hayek, Kumail Nanjiani, Gemma Chan, Richard Madden, Kit Harington, and Brian Tyree Henry. It's the most stacked Marvel cast that we've ever had. I'm extremely excited for this movie. The few promotional images that we got from it look awesome, and Marvel has a almost perfect track record, so I don't see any reason why this movie won't be great.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited for The Eternals. It just missed my list. My number 5 is going to be Mank, the new film from David Fincher about the making of Citizen Kane. This is going to be an awesome movie at Netflix. David Fincher is one of my all-time favorite filmmakers. He has never made a bad movie other than Alien 3 in my book. I'm really interested to see his take on classic Hollywood and such a big story as the making of what's considered the greatest film of all time by many people. So I'm really, really excited to see what comes of this movie and see what Fincher does with a more traditional type of story. This isn't like the super dark material that we usually see from him. So I'm really interested to see what his take on classic Hollywood is.
Yeah, Fincher's one to watch for sure. Anytime he comes out with something, you know it's going to be great.
Absolutely.
So number 4 for me, another person that you know when they put something out, it's going to be great. Last Night in Soho. The only thing I'm going to say about this is Edgar Wright is writing and directing this movie. Period. End of sentence. It doesn't matter what I'm saying after that. The man is responsible for 2 tattoos on my body. He's going to be responsible for more. I plan on getting every movie that he's done tattooed on my body. He's one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. He's one of the best filmmakers of the decade of this century. He's incredible. Anything he's going to do is going to be great. Like every movie he's made has been a perfect movie.
Yeah, that's number 3 on my list is Last Night in Soho. I'm really, really excited for this movie. Anya Taylor-Joy is going to be in it. She's one of my favorite actresses working today. I love everything that Edgar Wright has ever done. I love the show Spaced. I love all of his movies. I really, really, really can't wait for this movie as well. My number 4 is going to be The French Dispatch, the next film from Wes Anderson. This is going to be a musical, and it's going to be your typical cast of characters that you see from your Wes Anderson typically, as well as some new faces in there. Timothy Chalamet is going to be in there, which I'm really excited about. Not much is known about the story for the movie. I just know that it's set in, I believe it's the 1950s, and it's a musical from Wes Anderson, and the cast is absolutely stacked, so that's all you got to tell me to get me into the seats.
Yeah, it's another filmmaker year for sure. You were saying that earlier today, but this year, 2019, was a filmmaker year, and this one is going to be as well.
Yeah, definitely. What's your number 3?
Number 3 is Denis Villeneuve's Dune, starring Timothy Chalamet, Josh Brolin, Oscar Isaac, Zendaya, and Jason Momoa, just to name a few.
Just a very small few of that cast. It's ridiculous.
The cast is out of this world. I don't know anything about Dune. I haven't read the book or seen the older movie, but Denis Villeneuve, sci-fi, Timothy Chalamet, I'm there. I'm going to see it multiple times, I'm sure. Give this movie all the money in the world.
Roger Deakins shooting it as well.
Deakins. So. I mean, come on. It's just another thing of, like, you see all these people that have proven track records. Timothy Chalamet picks great stuff exclusively. Denis Villeneuve has all of his movies that he's made have been incredible movies, like amazing sci-fi stuff. So, like, there's nothing in this movie that makes me think it will be anything less than amazing.
Yeah. My number 3 was Last Night in Soho, so we talked about that a little bit. Give me your number 2.
Number 2 is Disney Pixar's Soul. I am so excited for this movie. Pixar movies are some of my favorites. They make me cry like a baby. They make me laugh like a child. They do everything that I want a movie to do, and every single time that they come out, they just amaze me with the storytelling, with the messaging, and with the animation. This movie is starring Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey. It's the first Pixar movie to ever have a black lead, and so that's super exciting. It's kind of vague on what the trailer's about, but it has something to do with jazz musicians, Pixar, that's all I need to know. Like, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. The trailer gives me goosebumps. It looks like it could be very emotional. And again, I'm very excited for Pixar to have their first. It seems like it's crazy that it took them this long, but it is exciting that they're having their first black lead character in a Pixar movie.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that finally happening. My number 2 is going to be Tenet, the new film from Christopher Nolan. The trailer for this movie looks amazing. The cast looks amazing. Robert Pattinson, John David Washington. That's all I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also get this kind of tease that it might have something to do with time travel in the trailer, which that makes me even more excited for. Michael Caine's in this, I'm sure. Is he in the trailer?
But he's not in the trailer.
Michael Caine's got to be in this. So it's Christopher Nolan. So I'm excited to see what he does. Another movie that I really don't know anything about what the hell is going on in that trailer, but it looks epic and it's from Christopher Nolan. So what more do you need?
Yeah, my number 1 is Tenet. And the reason my number 1 is Tenet is because Christopher Nolan has this, he is the only director in Hollywood that is able to get these budgets for these movies, that the same budget that the Avengers movies get and these Star Wars movies get are given to Christopher Nolan to make these epic original movies. He's the only director in Hollywood that does it. The only original enormous budget movies we get are from Christopher Nolan. This looks like him going back to kind of like Inception type of stuff. It could be connected to that in some way, I'm hearing, so that would be dope. John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. If you are one of those people that only saw Robert Pattinson in the Twilight movies or know about him from the Twilight movies, go watch Good Time, go watch The Lighthouse. This dude's incredible, and I can't wait to see what he does in a Christopher Nolan movie. I also love John David Washington, loved him in BlacKkKlansman. So this movie, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm really excited for it. The reason it's my number 1 is because it's an original movie with an enormous budget, and I love that Nolan still gets that.
Yeah, he's one of the only guys out there that gets that. So anytime you see his name attached on a movie, you know it's going to be a big deal. My number 1 is going to be Dune, that you mentioned earlier, from Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve is probably my favorite working writer-director in Hollywood right now. This film is going to be amazing, I think. The team that he has, both creatively and like in front of the camera and behind the camera, is amazing for this. This film is going to weird a lot of people out, which I'm excited for. I'm a huge fan of David Lynch, and it might be one of Lynch's weaker films, but the original Dune is still a lot of fun. I have the first audiobook downloaded on my phone, and I plan to listen to it before the movie comes out. But from what I know of Dune from the original movie, there's a lot of really weird, surreal stuff going on in this movie. So it's going to weird a lot of people out and turn a lot of people off, I think. But it's going to be an incredibly rich sci-fi story. So I'm all about sci-fi. I'm all about, especially whenever it's directed by Denis Villeneuve and shot by Roger Deakins. Mm-hmm. That happened with Blade Runner 2049, which is my favorite film of the 2010s. So I am really, really excited to see what happens from this team again.
Yeah, I just really, really hope that this movie makes money, because Blade Runner 2049 was a huge bomb. Not a lot of people saw Enemy. Arrival didn't make a ton of money. Denis Villeneuve's making great stuff, and people just aren't really seeing it, and I'm not sure what that disconnect is, but more people need to see his movies, because he makes great stuff.
Yeah, Prisoners is another one of those films that's one of my favorite films of the 2010s, and barely anybody has seen that. But yeah, anything from Denis Villeneuve has my seal of approval. I've seen everything the guy's done, and everything he's done is amazing. So believe that's gonna wrap us up for today. We talked about The Grudge, and we talked about Midsommar. So definitely check out Midsommar. Do not check out The Grudge. So thank you so much for joining us for another episode. We'll be back next week with more thoughts on what to watch. Until then, be sure to subscribe, give us a review, and we will see you next time.